So for quite some time now, if you want to use double movement in Fortnite, you'd have to use a third-party software outside of the actual game itself. But now Fortnite has introduced the settings to change it so you can have your own double movement settings inside the actual settings itself. Hitting the keyboard and mouse button, you'll see keyboard movement, use custom diagonals. If you keep this off, or you just turn it on and keep it at these default values, it's the exact same thing as having it off. So make sure you change these. Some quick tips is the forward diagonal angle should never be below the halfway mark. It should always be above. Going below, you're just going to run straight and you'll have no side angle when you hold down D or A. So keep it at least above. Strafe angle just means that when you hold down A or D, are you going to move forward when you hold it down instead of just sideways? Or you can go backward when you hold it down and sideways. Personally, I prefer to have it below the halfway mark. That way I can just hold down A and move at a sharper sideways angle forward than just pure 90-degree flat plane. The backward diagonal angle should always be at halfway or below, never forward. Otherwise, you're just going to be running completely backwards. At least this way you get some better movement when you're moving backwards than just a complete 45 degree. So the basic movement is, if I'm standing here in the middle, this is somewhat the middle. I try to jimmy rig this. So this is 0, this is 90, 180, and that's 270, and then that'd be 360 or 0. If I hold down W and D right now while looking forward, I'll kind of follow this plane. I'm heading more forward than I am sideways, and I'm trying to look forward, and that's the main reason people use strafing. The area where this becomes a problem is when you go up to a building. Let's say you're following somebody and they just climbed over this fence and now they're behind this truck here. You want to keep your eye on them, and you also want to run around this corner. If I stand on this cross point here and I try and keep my eye on this vehicle here and I hold down W and D, I will run into this fence just before the door about halfway. So instead of making it to this other point around this corner, I'll just crash into the fence right there. As soon as I change my forward diagonal movement to approximately, I'm going to say about 72 for me. We'll try this out. And I sound the cross and I look at the vehicle and I hold down W and D. You can now see that I completely make it across, and actually I'd make it to the other point at that point. So instead of coming right there, I've now made it all the way to this angle. So this is kind of how it works. When I left it at 45 degrees, you have to imagine that this is 0 and this is 90. In between, this would be about 45, but apparently it's more here. I'm not sure as to why, but anyways, that's where you would run. But now that I set mine to 90, I'm running more away from 0 and closer to 90, which is about, I would say about here, around this plane instead of this plane. So if I now hold down W and D, yeah, just like I assumed, I will now stay closer here than there. That's a drastic difference. If you want to go halfway, maybe select 60 or something, maybe 58, and you'll stay around this middle point, which is more of a 45 degree. I don't know why 45 is there. Okay, so what about strafing angle? When we look at strafing angle, it's set to 90. That's because if we look at a protractor, this is 0, and this is about 90 and 270. As soon as I hold down D, I'm going to move just directly towards 90, or 270 if I held down A. But I want to move forward a little bit, and I mean just a little bit. So I'm going to set it down to 80. And we're going to see if this is at least a difference. I should move forward and off of this plane, which I am. And if I keep holding it a little bit of a ways, I'll find myself at least in front of this a little bit. Now, that's kind of slow, so I'm going to move it forward again to about, I don't want to copy this exactly. Let's say 75. Let's do a little bit of a difference here. So now that's at 75 instead of 72. I should follow, yeah. So this is just me holding down D. Now if I held down A, I'm way off of that already. Instead of just going sideways, I can move sideways even faster, and I can move forward a bit. Which now allows me to probably change my forward strafe angle a little bit more so I can run forward faster. So I'm going to lower this down to about 67. So now if I go back to this cross point, and I hold down W and D, yeah, now I'm going about halfway sideways and halfway forward. And I think I'd even go a little bit lower so I can go like in front of this line. But now if I hold down D, I'm going to do a sharper turn while still going forward a little bit, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So the next thing that we're going to want to check out is this backward diagonal angle, which is the exact same as forward, except we're going backwards now, which I'm just going to set mine to about 122. I think this is going to work the best. And if I hold down A and S, there. I'm going sideways more than if I was going backwards, which is usually what I want to do, because if I have a rock here, or for example, if we go back over to here, so let's say there's somebody out there in the distance and I want to hide behind this truck, and I'm sitting here, I'm shooting, and I want to hide behind the truck. Now I can get behind it a little bit easier, whereas if I hold down strafe without the backwards diagonal, usually you would end up out here, and you can't keep your eye on the target, because to get behind the vehicle, it's better off just to look at it and then hide. Whereas now I can get there a little bit easier while keeping my eye on the target, so they can't escape my sightline, and I can keep tracking them. I hope my protractor little idea kind of helped. I know a lot of people didn't explain it that way. They just said change it to these degrees and you'll start to see some differences. Just look at it as a protractor. That's 0, that's 90. I set mine to about 65 or something, so that's about here, which is exactly where I want it to be. If I hold down my D key, I set to some, I think 72 or 75, which is about here, which is exactly where I want it to be. I just look at it as if it's a protractor. It'll make way more sense. Go into creative, place down a building, see how you like the approaches. And yeah, I hope this video helped. If it did, give it a thumbs up. Helps other people find it, helps them find out better information. And we'll see you guys next time.